They buried him. Not the way you bury a person, not the way you bury someone whose name is spoken out loud, whose shoulder gets touched one last time, whose face is followed by human eyes until the earth closes. There was no name here, no eyes, no hands, only a procedure. Here they didn't bury people. Here they closed cases. Later the village would say it in a whisper, as if the word itself could harm you. They took him. So, that's it. And the silence after those words would be longer than any explanation. Occupied land lived by different rules. Night here wasn't just darkness, it was a lid. Heavy, deaf, so heavy that the air felt thick. Wind moved across the field, dragging dry snow like dust. Somewhere far away a dog barked once, hoarse, broken, and then fell silent, as if it too had been ordered to stop. Alexei opened his eyes in that night like he had committed a forbidden act. Not immediately. First, he simply understood. He hadn't vanished. He was supposed to vanish, but he hadn't. And the feeling wasn't joy, not victory, it was fear, like the world had made a mistake and would fix it any second now. He tried to breathe in, the breath came short and torn. His ribs hurt the way a heavy, blunt thing hurts you, not to break you, but to prove you're still here. He heard his own breathing and flinched at how loud it sounded. In that kind of silence, everything becomes too loud. A breath, a sleeve brushing fabric, even a thought feels like noise. He didn't move, because movement is risk. Risk means people. People mean the end. Something heavy pressed down from above, not like a stone, like a presence. He lifted a hand slowly, as if testing whether he was even allowed to move. His fingers found foreign cloth, a wet sleeve, a button, a stiff seam. He didn't need words to understand. He was underneath, under others. Don't think. Don't look. Don't remember. Just get out. He crawled the way you crawl out of a nightmare, by millimeters, afraid that if he jerked too fast, everything would collapse and the world would become correct again, meaning deadly. The ground was cold, the grass scratched his palms. Something inside him screamed, run, but he knew. People who run are heard. When his face was no longer pinned beneath Chujayat Khan, when his hands found open air, Alexei froze on his stomach and listened without breathing. Nothing. No footsteps. No voices. No light. Only wind. And only then did he allow himself a single thought. Short, dry, like an order. If I'm alive, then I'm not allowed to disappear. He didn't stand up right away. A living person is visible. A standing one is even more visible. He lay there, staring into the sky. It was huge, empty, cold. It made him want to cry and scream, as if the world had made the sky so vast on purpose, just to make a person feel small and alone inside it. His name was Alexei Platonov, 39. Before the war, he was a teacher. Chalk on a blackboard, a stern look when someone copied, a laugh when kids mixed up letters, a quiet pride when someone finally understood. He owned a couple of suits, one for holidays, and a pocket watch on a chain that his students once gave him. Now all of that was useless. The watch was gone. The suits belonged to another life, and his name itself had become danger. He rose to his knees. His legs trembled, not even from weakness, but from disbelief that his body still worked at all. Somewhere a dog began to howl again, and that sound was worse than any gunshot. A shot is a dot. A dog is a search. Alexei looked toward where the village should be. He didn't see it with his eyes. He saw it with memory. The well, the school, his house, the woodshed, his sister Anna's window. Home pulled at him like a magnet. Not because it was safe, because it was his. But his had turned into a trap. He forced himself to turn away and walk into the forest. The forest was wet and black, as if it had been soaked. Trees stood like a wall. Branches whispered and creaked softly, as if they were talking to each other. Alexei moved slowly, holding tree trunks the way you hold railings. The world swayed. His head hummed. Sometimes he thought he heard his name. Sometimes he thought someone followed him. He would stop, freeze, listen. And each time he told himself, those aren't footsteps. That's blood pounding in his ears. That's memory. And memory was more dangerous now than reality. Near dawn, he found an old dugout, abandoned. Inside it smelled of rot, smoke, and mice. He crawled in, sat in the corner, tucked his legs under himself. Warms you a little. And for the first time he allowed himself to shake on the inside, not the outside, because he understood. If he simply survived, that wasn't a win. It was a debt. And if he didn't find what he was still alive for, he would die anyway. Not in a field, but in a forest, empty and useless. He wanted water, food, but more than anything, he wanted a normal human sound, something that would prove the world hadn't fully turned into silence. But there was only silence, and in that silence he heard his own breath, cautious, foreign, like a man learning how to live again. For 2 days, Alexei didn't go near the village. He watched from afar, lying in bushes at the forest edge like an animal, listening. He saw patrols, boots, short commands, brief stops. He saw carts. He saw someone hauling water. He saw smoke where a house used to be. The village moved, but as if through pain, not living, functioning, like a body after illness. On the third evening, he crawled closer, hid behind a shed at the edge, breathed into his sleeve so his breath wouldn't show. And he heard a voice, a woman's, scraped raw, not speaking so much as proving she could still speak. He recognized it instantly. Anna, his sister. Everything inside him lunged toward her. Step out, grab her, say I'm here, I'm alive. But another voice cut through, foreign, level, cold. Where is he? Anna answered quickly, without pauses, like the words had been rehearsed. I don't know. I didn't see. They took him. He didn't come back. He's gone. Alexei understood. She was doing the right thing. She was saving herself, and maybe others. In her gone, there was not denial. There was a warning. Don't come out. He heard them shove her. She let out a small quiet sound, and then said again, he's gone. After that, footsteps moved away. A door slammed. The village fell quiet again. Alexei didn't go in, didn't approach her window. He went back into the forest and only there allowed himself to cry, silently, until his throat hurt. It was the cry of a man who returned not to where he wanted, but to where he wasn't allowed. A week passed. Alexei understood. Hiding meant waiting for death. They would find him anyway, by accident or on purpose. And then he'd die as quietly as he was supposed to. He had to act. But acting without a gun meant acting with the mind. He began counting time, when patrols passed, where they lingered, where they liked to smoke, which part of the road was visible and which wasn't. He listened to the village like a radio, catching fragments, voices, wheels, dogs. He memorized where grass rustled, where snow squeaked loud. In the dugout he found an old knife, dull, kitchen-made, a coil of rope, a rusty tin, and a strip of cloth. Not weapons, tools. One night he heard a muffled cry, not loud, strangled, like someone was forbidden to make sound. He understood. Someone was being taken again. He crawled to the road and saw the cart. 2 people tied, 2 guards. He could have left, told himself not my business, stayed alive for himself. But he knew, if he did that, he wouldn't return as a human. He'd stay a shell. He waited. The guards stopped to smoke. Alexei threw a stone far into bushes. A branch snapped sharply. Both turned their heads. One went to check. The other stayed, distracted. That was enough. Alexei crawled to the cart and began cutting rope. The knots were wet. His fingers slipped. The rope fought him. One prisoner raised his eyes. A boy, Semyon, 16, a neighbor. Semyon stared like he'd seen a ghost. Alexei pressed a finger to his lips and whispered, "Forest, now, don't look back." Semyon didn't understand at first. Then he did, and vanished into the dark as if the forest swallowed him. Alexei dissolved after him. When the guard returned, he didn't notice right away. And when he did, it was late. In darkness, you can shout all you want. Darkness doesn't betray those who know how to be silent. Back in the dugout, Alexei shook, not from cold, but from the fact that he'd done something not just for himself. And he understood. It didn't have to be a single act. It could become a path. By morning, the village buzzed in whispers. Whispers lived everywhere. At the well, near stoves, under roofs. He escaped. Not alone. Someone helped? Who? They say Platonov. The name sounded careful, like a forbidden thing. Alexei listened to those whispers from the forest and understood. Now he wasn't just a survivor. He was a rumor. And rumors draw searchers. He could still leave. He still had time. But that evening he caught a conversation at the village edge. Tomorrow, they'll take 3 more. Who? Kuzmich and 2 women. Kuzmich was a carpenter, built Alexei's fence, carried stools to the school when there wasn't enough furniture. Alexei saw him clearly in his mind. Hands in wood shavings, a simple laugh, simple words. And he understood. Tomorrow was a chain. Today, 1. Tomorrow, 3. Then half the village. So he decided to contact Anna. Not through the house is danger. Through signs. On a birch by the trail, he carved 2 short cuts. I'm near. Under a fence by the well, he set a small stone on its edge. Come out at night. He waited. Anna came out. walked slowly, stopping to listen. When she saw his shadow between trees, she didn't scream, didn't run. She approached and whispered, "I knew." She handed him a small bundle, a piece of bread. "Don't eat it all at once. Keep it, so you're not empty." Alexei nodded. "I didn't come back for bread," he said. "I came back for you." Anna stared at him for a long time. "Then listen," she said. "Tomorrow they'll take 3. They'll bring them to the same place. There will be 4 guards. They're scared, because dead people don't come back." She named names and added, barely audible, "Semyon is alive. He's hiding at Aunt Nina's. He wants to help." Alexei understood. The chain had already begun. One saved person reaches back. Alexei came to the ravine early. He lay face down in the grass. It was easier not to think that way. The ravine was the place where they had closed him. The ground felt chujaya there. Even the air felt heavier. He listened. Wheels, footsteps, short commands. The cart stopped. 3 prisoners, 4 guards. Alexei understood. If he rushed in, he'd die, and they'd die with him. He needed a different sound. He prepared a tin, cloth, and a little oil. He dragged it aside and lit it, so the flame stayed small but visible. At night, even a small flame is an alarm, a sign of urgent. The guards turned their heads. 2 moved toward it. Chaos began, shouting, waving, stomping, and in that moment, one prisoner did the desperate. He fell from the cart. Not bravely, not cresivo, simply because his legs wouldn't hold. Alexei knew, now. He crawled in, grabbed the person by the shoulders, and pulled toward the forest. The body was heavy, like a sack of wet earth. The person didn't help, floating between consciousness and nothing. Alexei dragged, feeling his breath tear, his fingers lose strength, the ground grab his clothes. Behind him came shouts, but farther away, not close. Farther means possible. When they reached the forest, Alexei finally saw the face. It was Aunt Galia, the woman who once brought him milk after lessons, and said, "Eat, teacher, the children need you." Alexei looked and didn't believe. Like the world had made a mistake, but this time in the right direction. In the dugout, Aunt Galia woke closer to morning. Her eyes moved as if sight lagged behind reality. Then she whispered, "Where am I?" "In the forest. Quiet," Alexei said. She looked at him, and her eyes widened. "Lyosha," he nodded. She shut her eyes and breathed out, "God." By evening, Anna came. She brought Semyon. Semyon was thin, his eyes too big, the eyes of someone who saw too much too fast. But he stood straight. "I didn't leave," Semyon whispered. "I want to help." Alexei looked at him and understood. This was it. Not heroism, not guns, a chain. He began building a route, teaching like a teacher, calmly, sharply, without extra words. Don't walk the same trail twice. Approach water from different sides. Fire only in daylight and low, so smoke won't show. Breathe into your sleeve in frost, no steam. Listen for dogs. If dogs howl and people are near. He spoke the way he used to explain rules. And in that was strange salvation, familiar logic in a world without logic. 2 days later, another person came. Semyon brought him. Then another. The forest became not one man's hiding place, but a road for many. But each new person was risk. Risk of sound, risk of panic, risk of mistakes. Fear returned, not as a feeling, but as a permanent shadow. One night, Alexei heard what he feared most. Boots. Not far, not in the village, in the forest. He froze. Gripped the knife, not to kill, but to hold on to metal like an anchor. Anna, Semyon, Aunt Galia lay in the dugout, not breathing. Even the mice seemed to stop. Boots came closer, short, rough voices. A flashlight flashed between trees like an eye. Alexei understood. They weren't patrolling. They were searching. Here. He raised a hand to everyone. Don't move. And then Aunt Galia made a tiny sound, not on purpose. A small sob from pain. Mompam. But from wire. From a bussy she, the body that sometimes acts without permission. The sound was small. But in a forest, a small sound is a hammer. The boots stopped. Everything inside Alexei clenched. The next second would decide everything. So he did something strange. He threw a stone the other way, far, into dry brush, so the noise felt logical, like an animal breaking through. The stone hit a branch. The branch cracked. The boots turned. The flashlight moved away. The pause afterward was long as a lifetime. Then the steps receded. Alexei exhaled only when the forest returned to emptiness. They had been one step away from the end. No one spoke inside the dugout. Speaking was danger, but in their eyes it was clear. Fear had thickened. A couple of days later, Anna brought news. In the village, they say tomorrow, there will be a big raid, house to house. Whoever looks suspicious, taken immediately. Alexei sat by a weak flame and understood. Tomorrow wasn't one person, it was dozens, and he couldn't pull out dozens the way he pulled out one. Semyon stared, waiting for orders like a soldier. Aunt Galia was silent. Anna didn't cry. People stopped crying long ago. But her fingers trembled. Alexei understood the worst part wasn't the risk. It was the choice. Who goes first? Who stays? Who do you tell? I can't. He hated himself for these thoughts. But that was war's adult truth. You don't save everyone. You save who you can. He decided to do what he didn't want to do. Split people. Tonight, women and children go, he said quietly. Those who won't survive long in the forest. They go by the short route. And the rest? Anna asked. Alexei looked at her and said honestly, the rest later, if it's possible. Semyon clenched his fists. That's unfair. Alexei said, there's no fair here. There are living and dead. I choose living. The words were hard, but they were true. And Anna nodded because she understood. If Alexei starts lying to comfort them, they will die. The night was damp. Fog hung low, catching on branches. That was good. Fog hides. Alexei led the first group. Anna, Aunt Galia, 2 more women, and a boy about 12. The boy didn't cry. He walked silently like an adult. That was worse than any sob. Alexei used hand signs. Stop, quiet, wait. People breathed into sleeves, stepped where he pointed. Sometimes he made them stand for 5 minutes just listening. They passed the ravine wide, avoided the road, crossed a low, wet place where water sucked under boots. Once voices rose in the distance, and Alexei laid everyone flat until the voices passed. Silence was heavy. But now it was an ally. Near dawn, they reached a point where another territory began, where their own could be found. Alexei didn't say victory, he said chance. Before leaving, Anna looked at him. "And you?" "I'll come back," Alexei said. "You already once," she began. He cut her off. "I already died once. I don't want to a second time. That's why I'll come back carefully." Anna didn't hug him. Hugs were danger. She only touched his sleeve with her fingertips. Then she left. Alexei watched her go, and it felt something inside become both emptier and lighter, like he had finally handed off part of the burden. He returned to the forest alone, and the forest became heavy again. Now his task was the others. Semyon waited in the dugout with two men, grown men, strong, but their eyes were the same, eyes of people who know the cost of one wrong step. Semyon asked, "Did they make it?" Alexei nodded. They did. And for the first time in a long time, he allowed a small, almost invisible smile. Not happiness, relief. The next day the raid began. Alexei heard it from afar, not screams, but movement. Too many boots, too many dogs, too much restless noise. He could have left, right then. Told himself, "I did enough." But he didn't, because he understood. If he leaves now, everyone he could still guide will vanish. And if they vanish, it will be as if he himself lay back in that pit. At night he went closer to the village edge. Not into the village, into its shadow. He saw two being marched away. One, an old man, one younger. They were moved fast without extra words. Alexei understood. No time. He did what the forest taught him. He created a different sound. On a bare patch, he lit dry straw so it flared sharp. Fire at night is always urgent. The guards turned, confusion, shouting. Alexei crawled to the tied men, cut the rope on the old man's wrists. The old man lifted his eyes. A question. "Who are you?" Alexei didn't answer. He only whispered, "Forest. Now." The old man moved, not fast, but steady, like a man who decided to live. The younger man froze and whispered, "Platonov?" For a second, Alexei felt the name slice the air. A name is danger, but a name is also strength. He nodded once. Later, now, Forest. They vanished. Alexei led them to the dugout. Semyon stared like he was looking at a machine, not a person. "How did you do that?" Semyon asked. Alexei answered, exhausted. "I just didn't make noise." He sat down. His hands shook, not from cold, but from fatigue, from the fact that his life had become a chain of other lives. Semyon said quietly, "In the village they say you're dead." Alexei looked at him and said, "Let them think so. Dead men are searched for less." A pause. Then Alexei added, "That night I understood one thing. If they buried you too early, then you were spared not for yourself." No one answered, but everyone understood. Outside, the forest was black and wet. Trees stood like a wall. Fog crawled between trunks like smoke. And somewhere far away, a dog barked again. Alexei lifted his head, listened. Footsteps. But the footsteps were soft, careful. A minute later, silhouettes appeared from the darkness. 2. Then more, then more. They stood silently, as if afraid of their own breath, and one said, "We were told you can lead us out." Alexei looked at them and understood. That was the ending. Not beautiful, not heroic, but real. He nodded. "I can." And in that second, he felt the same thing he felt the first night. The world could correct itself and take him back. But now he wasn't alone. Now he was a road.